Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. I have the pleasure to welcome my good friend Adrien, who is playing for Team Belgium, the Infernal Dwarfs. Hi Adrien.
Hello.
Very
Good
happy
to.
to welcome you on the channel. So you play regularly with Infernal Dwarfs, so I guess you will have interesting thoughts regarding the new book.
Yeah, indeed. It's a pleasure to see that finally we have something new coming our way, because it was highly expected, and I hope that the book will be highly appreciated. But I like it so far. No spoiler.
Yeah, me too. No spoilers so far. Basically, what we want to do is not explain you every of the new rules within the book. It's more to focus on the interesting things to see a little bit what are the possible combos, what are the things that we think maybe are a bit overpowered or underpowered. We'll talk a little bit more about our view than the book and all the rules themselves. I guess they are not so hard to understand, so that should be okay. Let's start maybe with the first page, universal rules. So first of all, we have the first category is fires of industry. It's basically just a limitation not to exceed the number of war machines within the army. That's nothing new regarding this point, but maybe Adrien, you can explain us a little bit regarding the rule incendiary. That's the new rule regarding the flammable token.
Yeah, indeed. They revamped a bit the flammable slamming, with this synergy, by introducing this rule. So potentially with some units, and we will discuss about it later, but with some units, like for example the slaves or the vassals, you can give those incendiary token to some units. It can be done through shooting attacks and sometimes also through combat attacks. And I think this mechanism is very interesting and change a little bit from the previous haze of magnesia that we had. It was a very neat spell. However, this is, I think, a bit more profound, and it can be stacked, so it's interesting. Definitely, I really like it, and I think we will have quite a lot of possibilities and opportunities to use that.
And I guess that's a good incentive to play with vassals now, because it's something special that they can give you.
Indeed. It feels that you will have to include, at least to some extent, vassals in your army list. If not, then it will be quite difficult to get it. I think the only other source that provides incendiary token is the Ring of Desiccation, which is working more or less as before. And it's generating those tokens. But indeed, besides that, I don't think it's possible to get them.
Exactly. It's only the vassals. So you have the vassals and the bolt thrower. We'll see that later.
Yep.
The next thing is the rework of the old Chosen Fashuruk. They call it now Infernal Brand. Basically, you give to everybody without Infernal Brand a battle focus and reroll the charges if you are within 6. So you need not to forget that you can be within 6 at the beginning of the movement phase, but not in combat. Then you don't gain battle focus. So you need to be careful and always think what is situation at the beginning of the movement phase and what is situation at the beginning of the combat, and where you want to move all your models with Infernal Brand to give these attributes to the unit who need it. For example, the Kadim family. I like the rework, to be honest. The old rule was cool as well, but I like this one. I think it's a good way to help a little bit the non-Chaos Dwarf units. The reroll charge and battle focus is interesting. It's still a way to give battle focus to the Kadim family without the frenzy mechanism. So I like this rework. I don't know what you think about that.
I think it's really interesting as well. It's much more straightforward. So you still consider all the other non-infernal branded units as insignificant. So it's also very nice. But indeed, it makes all the Kadim family, like you say, very interesting, because we will see that they have been a bit reworked, and I think they could benefit quite a lot of that from that. But what is also interesting, and it's going to be a bit of a spoiler for the units, but for me, they should have included the March and Shoot. That is already included in most of Dwarf's profiles. Yeah. But it would have been even more clear that it's really like their, official brand or official mark or official aspects, I think.
Yeah, you're totally right. Then the next thing, I'm really fan about that because I've always been jealous of the Orcic goblins who can feature character on a small base, cavalry, and now we have our own way to do it with the Tauric ritual. Basically, it's an aspect you can pay, a modification you can pay to one of your character. It works for the Vizier, the Overlord, and the Prophet. And you can pay it and basically change the base. You are now a beast, a tall beast, basically on a small base of cavalry, 25 by 50, and you get higher mobility and slightly higher armor in exchange of losing the march and shoot and paying some price. But I really love the mechanic and how it works. We'll see later. It gives the aspect to have new builds, to gain a bit more flexibility within the character build, and not only build an overlord who has to stay within his own unit.
Yeah, that's a really nice option. And the fact that, now you can also guess that all Taurics will get impacted because it's also included in this. So I think it's really nice, and it will give totally different gameplay. If you want to have a bit more pushy list, it could allow such a list to exist, which was much more difficult before.
And now let's move on to the attack attributes. Now we have the three types of munition. Basically, you can pay one of these munition to each of your war machines, except the bolt thrower, we'll see later. But the normal Infernal Dwarfs war machines, you can always choose between cluster munition, Ether Cloud, Kadim Manifestation. Quickly with cluster munition, basically within 6, the closest unit will get D3 plus 1 hit, strength 4. And then Ether Cloud, the test, because of the casualties that you cause, will be done at -1 discipline. And if the unit has the rule channel, it loses 1 Veil token. And the last one, Kadim Manifestation, gives you the opportunity of having flaming attack and magical attacks. And if this flaming attack become additionally one more time flaming, for example, you cast Glory of Gold or you cast Flaming Sword, then these attacks will become divine attack. And this aspect of Kadim Manifestation is not only for shooting, you will see it as well in some weapons and some combat abilities.
Yeah, typically it will be a feature of all Kadims. They will have this rule as a generic rule, and I think it's really, really nice, and it will probably make some Demon Legion players cry.
Yeah, definitely. Oil skins. Basically, that's what we explained before. That's the way for vassals to normal vassals, so core vassals, to give a flammable token, an incendiary token to one unit, so they can reduce the strength of their attack to strength 1, or they can reduce the range of the shooting and the strength of the shooting to give one incendiary token. It's interesting because it's not so easy to give this token since you don't shoot that far.
No, correct. However, I already thought about it, and you can definitely use, for example, the former hobgoblins on wolves that are now vassals cavalry, I believe, which have a very nice movement. They can march and shoot, and so it compensates a little bit, and it's quite cheap. So if you don't want to invest in a big unit with bows, then you can potentially use them.
Yeah, definitely. And then we have the Volcanic Embrace, which is a little bit like before, but something changed. It's grind attack. It's not anymore initiative 0, so you will be able to do it a bit sooner in the combat, which is a good news for the Kadim family especially.
Yeah.
And of course they gain Kadim Manifestation. All these attacks included special attacks, meaning you can have divine special attacks if you are able to give a second occurrence of flaming.
Yeah. I like it. It's interesting indeed.
Me too. Then we have the Infernal Armor, no change disregarding. Blunderbuss, how do you like the rework?
Yeah, I think it's one of the weapons that has endure. I will use endure the most of the changes in the last 2-3 years. So I think we had like 3 or 4 different designs. I think this one is very interesting. So we now see that the weapon is strength 3 and AP 1. But what is super interesting is that there are now area attack two on one. So it means that even if you have a unit with only one rank, then you will generate two shoots. So I think it's really nice, and there is some other little bonus, like for example the fact that you can reroll the ones if you are short range. Very interesting. I like it.
And then we have the flintlock, still as before, no change. But basically, I'm still not convinced that the blunderbuss are a bit, for me, in the same role as the flintlock, and I'm not so sure that the people will prefer the blunderbuss rather than the flintlock, who have a bit more strength, a bit more AP as well, and give something to combat as well. So I'm not so sure so many people will feature blunderbuss, but I'm curious to see. I didn't test them.
I think that if you combine them, and sorry, it's a bit ahead of our schedule, but if you combine them with the tower, mobile tower, then you can definitely have some interesting build there. But it needs to be tested.
And then we have the flamethrower, who has the range 18 now, but you will see we have some modification of range depending of the artillery that you take, so no big change here. Rocket battery, something new. We have 4 shot, strength 6, AP3 with multiple wound and clip and wings, so quite interesting against some juicy targets. But it's a bit different as before. Also, the mechanic for misfire is not so. It's a bit complicated. But if you get the -1, -2 on the misfire table, it can be really bad for your artillery piece. I guess it's a good way to balance a little bit the weapon, who can be a bit. Seen as strong, because the 4 shots, multiple wound, it can be a bit scary, but you need not to forget that you need to hit first, and you have long range, and you have sometimes not a lot of way to shoot very with a very high range, as you will see.
Indeed.
Then you can tell us a little bit about the Titan mortar. It's the same as before, huh?
Yeah, it did not really change. I think it's still 4-on-4. Strength is the same. AP1. Well, the only thing that is different, and it is because of the new mechanisms regarding the ammunition, is that indeed the Titan mortar lost all the little rules that were very nice, like the dangerous terrain. Yeah. The fact that some artillery weapon cannot shoot on a die 6. So yeah. I would say that the mechanism is the same, but without the little rules.
Without the flavor, we can say.
Yeah, but you can add it back with the ammunition. So in a way, why not?
Let's talk a little bit about the new hereditary spell. I will let you explain it.
Yeah, this one is interesting. It really works like the Wrath of God. So typically the same mechanism, you can place it everywhere on the table, and then at the end of every magic phase, then you will roll the dice, and on a 4+, the comet somehow will go down. But here, instead of generating damages, it will give dangerous terrain, or at least the units in a certain range, defined by, if I'm not mistaken, 2 dice 6 plus the number of turns. Then all those units will be affected by dangerous terrain 1, and if for some reason they already received a token incendiary, then the dangerous terrain will be 2, like dangerous terrain 2. I don't know. I will maybe let you give your opinion about it, and then I will react, because I'm a bit confused with this one. I don't know.
Okay. Personally, I was able to test it during multiple games, and I have to say I wasn't so enthusiastic at the beginning, but I'm a fan of it, because I think the value is not so high. It puts a bit of pressure. It's a good tool to deal against big blocks. Yeah. And I love the mechanic as well, because it's a good incentive to play some way to have to give incendiary token. So yeah, I like it. I already found a nickname for this spell. For me, it's the soft comet.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I need to test it. I did not really have the chance to do it so far. But yeah, I can see the benefit of having such a spell in an army that can potentially play quite a lot of defensive games. So yeah, why not?
Okay, let's move on to the special item. First of all, we have the Onyx core, the old Onyx core. So some changes to that. Basically, by giving the possibility to have Torque ritual on the character, they wanted to avoid having very strong character with a strength 6 multiple wound weapon in the army. So basically, it's an enchantment for an infernal weapon, and then it's not anymore strength 6 at the beginning, but then you have another way with the gauntlet, who are restricted to infantry model only to have strength 6. So you still can have Onyx Core with strength 6, but only with infantry model. And then it works with, now you have flaming attack, so it's not exactly the same as before. You have flaming attack, and you can have divine attack if you are able to give a second occurrence of flaming attack. So it's interesting, it's a complete rework, but so far I like it and I understand the choice.
Yeah, I think indeed they had like a very good thought about them and about it, and it's nice. Indeed.
I think it was important as well to give a reasoning behind the fact of having an overlord on foot, because if then the overlord on Toruk can have exactly the same weapon with high strengths and be much more mobile, I'm not sure people would fancy anymore to play a lot of overlord on foot. So I think by doing this, they give a good way to still have a stronger overload on foot, which is not so strong if you are on a Toruk. That's a bit the idea, but I like it.
It makes sense, definitely.
Then we have two weapon where I'm not so fan of this weapon. The first one is giving you 3 more attack and giving you some shots. It's not bad. I've used it several times, as you can see in my first battle reports with the new ID. Against Shootiel, for example, I like this weapon, I have to say. It's maybe slightly overpriced with 60 points, but not so bad choice for an overlord. So, yeah, not bad. But then the second one, I found it too expensive to gain Volcanic Brains 2d3. Okay, it's grind attack additionally, but I'm not convinced that it will be taken very often. It's definitely too expensive to my taste.
Yeah, well, maybe just to react, I will not touch on the Flame of the East because indeed I share your opinion, but I believe that the triple speed could be quite interesting in combination with one item we will discuss in a minute, is the Kadim Binding, because this kind of binding allow you to have parry and use two-handed weapons as a single-handed weapons. And there, if you combine it with triple speed on the flintlock, it means that potentially, for example, you would have an overload with 7 attack, strength 5, parry, and a better aegis against fire. I think there is something to do about it.
I tested this build. I tested this build. I liked it. Yeah, like you say, it's great because you still have parry, so you're still hard to hit for normal infantry, and you have a lot of attacks, so you can go in big units. I love the item. I have to say the combination is great, and Kadim Binding, I really love it. And then we have 2 options in armor enchantment. The first of all, I was a bit surprised at the beginning because it gives you the rule of the immortals, and we will do a small spoiler regarding this rule. Basically, it says that you can never be wounded on better than 4+. So when I read that first, I thought the beer models, will it work on for example, Great Bull of Shamut, Bull of Shamut? I was a bit surprised, but it definitely works. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, it's still 60 points. It's still it gives you no armor benefit if you are on a normal bull, for example. So I'm not so sure. At the beginning, I thought it's very strong, but now that I've read the rest of the book and I've tested it a bit more, I'm not so sure that it's so strong or that it's even overpowered. I think rather that it's a good way to give a small boost to the big bull, for example, against war machines, and to make him maybe a bit more playable. So I think it's a good tool, and still it gives you a motivation to put it on an infantry character because you have +1 armor.
Yeah, indeed. I share your opinion there. It could look really, really strong, but all in all, it's still pricey, and then you need to think about what am I gonna do with that?
Exactly. And for example, if you take it on normal bull of Shamut, it's an armor, so then you have no way to improve your armor save. So it's cool, but then I mean it's in some situation helpful, but not always. And you have paid 60 points for that, and you have only a 3-up armor save. So I'm not convinced that it's so overpowered on bull, for example.
No, indeed. And it's really situational, because if you want to be protected against, for example, cannon, okay, it might help, but still, I mean, does it worth 60 points there? I don't know. That's debatable.
Maybe, I guess on the Great Bull I will test it, because I think that's a good way to make such an expensive model more playable, because then on a matchup where you face one cannon, you can say, okay, let's play it. I mean, he will wound me on 4+, I have a ward save, so maybe I'm able to survive, so maybe why not on the Great Bull? I guess that could be a way to help a little bit the Great Bull to see the field a bit more, so we'll see. And then the last one is Blaze of Protection. Gives you basically a way to add some additional hits. I guess that this mechanic will work if you are in a big unit, for example, and then you have a good character with a good defensive abilities, who will be able to generate additional hits. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but I think that for this particular item, they had considered a name that was very different from the actual Blaze of Protection. I think it was related more to pride and stuff, and it was covering a bit more the actual effect of the item. So I'm a bit sad about the new name. That doesn't reflect the fact that, in fact, you have a character that will give you hits if you are not hitting him.
Yeah.
Which is fun, I think.
Yeah. But I like the mechanic, maybe slightly overpriced to my taste, but I don't know. And then we have 2 banner enchantment. The first one, I was a bit surprised at the beginning. I was a bit surprised. I don't know what you saw when you read that the first time.
Yeah, well, actually I was excited because Pride of Zalaman Cash, you can place a wall at the end of your movement phase, kind of everywhere. And I think it's well, if you look at all the other options you have in the book, it can really create like a interesting situation in games. And there you were mentioning a couple of items that were overpriced. Here I think we will potentially see a hit, because 50 points for this ability is huge. But I don't know if you share the same opinion.
Yeah, at the beginning I thought this is really good for 50 points. This is really good to put a wall. Yeah. But then I played it, I guess, in 1 or 2 battles. I wasn't able really to use it because my unit was strong enough without the wall. I guess in some situation, some particular combination, it can be really good. But then don't forget that it's a wall. You cannot take it again and move it. So it's one time. If your opponent is smart enough, he can move around and then deny you this advantage. So I guess basically this says during this next turn, you cannot charge me. That's more or less the effect of it. But I expect as well some price upgrade on this item, because 50 points it's maybe a bit less than what it does.
Yeah, but just maybe to conclude on that, I think it's really interesting to see that in fact this book will be much more about planification. You will have to think almost like 1 or 2 turns in advance all the time, because you have so many possibilities, so many
definitely.
So I think this one, for example, is a good way to.
It's a good example, and you will see later as well with the effect given by some units to other units. You have to think in advance about the position of the units between themselves. For example, you saw with Infernal Brand, you have to think in advance where will I be with my units to give the good effect to the unit who need it. So definitely, I can only agree. And then the second one, Trial of Ashur, give you a magical resistance 2. Applied as well to Frenzy Spell. I'm not so convinced about this standard, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't get it. To be really honest, I think for more or less the same point, you can have other items that will do the job, that will not take you a banner slot. I'm not very sure what they wanted to achieve there.
And then Artifacts, the first one, I tested it on my Overlord on Historic Ritual. I really liked it. Gives you a way to have an additional health point, and the breath attack that was our old mask, which was giving the breath attack, toxic attack. Love the item personally. I think it's well priced, and the fact that you cannot take it with Storing Presence, it's legit.
Indeed, nothing to add there. Really neat item.
What do you think regarding the tablet?
There again, I think it's interesting, but it needs to be tested because, if I understand correctly, when your prophet or when you are using a non-bound spell, then your prophet will be able to change a 1 in a tree, which is interesting, but yeah. I'm not totally sure, because still usually, well, that may help a bit, but yeah, I don't know. Have you tested it?
No, not yet. I was not so convinced by how it works and the fact that you have to use 3 dice. It's a bit restricted, and I'm not so sure that you would profit that much from it for this price, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Indeed, this is interesting, but yeah, maybe more a gadget than a real must-have.
Ring of Desiccation, so this gives you an instance of incendiary, and now you can take it on every model, no restrictions, however. Yep. So I think that's legit as well, since they took away the old hereditary. Now you have a way to do it with either Ring of Desiccation, which you can take with every unit, or the vassals. So makes sense to me.
Yeah, you're right.
And then Unflame, basically you can lose your flaming attack.
Mm-hmm.
And gain some agility bonus in combination with the spear on a unit. It might be interesting to gain high agility on the unit, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because, in fact, you inflict a -3 agility to the unit you are in base contact with. So yeah, it can potentially have like great. I think opportunities to, for example, deal with elves or demon legion with a high initiative. It's interesting.
And then we have the Golden Idol of Shamut. I really like this item because it helps a little bit with the movement, which is not the key feature, but you have Glory of Gaul as a bounce spell. And I think since Glory of Gaul, it's not so easy to cast. It's an 8+. You can basically cast it with 2 dice, using only 2 dice, and having it with power level 4. It's not bad. It can give you a way as well to gain easily some divine attack on the model with Kadi Manifestation. So I think it will see some play.
Yeah, definitely. It's really cheap as well, I think. Probably not underpriced, but cheap. So yeah, you can fit in a compo, and I think it will indeed be played.
The new Lugger dice?
Yeah, I like it. 40 points for that. It's really nice. It changed a bit because I think that before he had a little bit more rules, but when you consider that there is items that are priced around 20 or 30 points for re-rolling 1 armor save, and here you potentially can do it every turn, or choose to re-roll a fail to hit or fail to wound, I think it's great. And that will be an auto include in quite a lot of compo.
Yeah, I agree. And last but not least, the Gauntlet of Mazap. Like we said before, it's basically the same as before, but basically restricted to infantry model only. And I guess now you can also hit yourself if you are a single model unit, which was not the case before.
Yeah.
Okay, but it remains pretty cheap. Now we can start with the Overlord. New rule for the Overlord, the Keys of the Citadel.
I like it so much. So I will let you explain, but I really like it.
Yeah, I love this design. I think they had a great idea. Basically, you can make it a Swiss knife. You can really choose... it is a Swiss knife, actually. You can really choose the weapon you want. You can choose the enchantment you want. So it's really great because you can adapt it to the matchup you have. And I think this is really great. It's included in the price. I love it. Really, I love it.
Yeah, and for the people that really love fluff, I think it's also a super nice way to design. Okay, look, I'm a 0-1 unit, so you can only take 1 Overlord. The guy is the boss. He's gonna go in his Ziggurat or in the Citadel. He will open the vault, take the best weapon for the battle, and then he take it, he pack it with him, and he battle with it. I think it's also great from a fluff perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I was a bit surprised by the price of the Tauric Ritual modification, but I think they feared an overpowered, very speedy character, speedy cowboy. So I can understand that. I've tested it. Although even if the price is a bit expensive, I think it's a very good speedy character. So I love playing with the Overlord. You can basically decide what you want at the beginning of the game and just make it a good weapon to counter one of the weaknesses that you have in this particular matchup. So
yeah. Definitely, and this rule also allows you just to focus on his defensive items, make sure that he is protected enough. So I think it's really nice, and he also still have access to 2 other mounts. So honestly, I'm very happy with the design.
Yeah, we'll talk about the mount a bit later. The Prophet. I let you explain the Prophet. Basically, you have a lot of customization choices now.
Yeah, so if I summarize, because as you can see, guys, it's a full page of explanation and rules. But if I simplify that, you can customize your prophet by dedicating him to one of the four infernal dwarves god. So you would have the more generic version of the prophet, which is Prophet of Ashur, and this option is crazy because, in fact, depending on the lore you choose, you would be able to switch the A spell. So, for example, for Pyromancy, the Blaze, with the counterpart in the other lore. So, for example, for Alchemy, then you can switch between Blaze and Alchemical Fire. So I think it's really interesting.
And yeah, I agree. And then you have Prophet of Flugar, who can be on the Kadim Chariot. I tested this build as well with Aegis 4 up. It's not bad at all. Then you have Nezibkesh, basically the old engineer, and the Prophet of Shamut, who can ride now the Great Bull of Shamut. I was really excited about this option. Also, I tested it sometimes. I think it's a good way to play on the Great Bull of Shamut, because you have a mage on top, you still have good fighting capabilities. It's an expensive model, but as we said before, with the armor making you wound never better on 4+, I think it could be a way to play it, and maybe with a Master Occultism on top, you can improve the ward save. It's a good character, expensive, but still a fighty character. I tried as well Bull of Shamut, the small version. It's also a nice character, a prophet on a bull. I mean, it's fighty character for less than 500 points. You have an adept on a bull, which is also very interesting in the game. So I'm really a big fan of this customization possibilities, to be honest.
Yeah, indeed, it's really nice, and I think we will see a bit more occultism on the table as well due to those options.
Yeah. Then we have the old Vizier, no big change, expect the fact that it can be Torque Ritual as well, so you can build some small cowboy with maybe a bit less fighting abilities than the Overlord, but much cheaper than the Overlord. For 300, 350 maybe, you get something quite nice with good fighting abilities, so not bad, and it still has access to 150 points special items, so you can build something decent.
Totally, yeah. I think it's nice, and it was cheap before. It stays cheap, so it's good because we need that as well.
Torque Commissioner, they added a rule where you can do additional attack if you are within Torque Anointed unit to give a bit more flavor to this unit. But still, he lost quite a bit. I mean, you have only a 4 armor save. He lost 1 point armor save. Yeah. And he had a bit more fighting capabilities with the higher weapon skill, but lost a bit of pace as well. I'm not convinced personally. I don't think I think people will rather choose Vizier on a Torque Ritual or Overlord Torque Ritual for an equivalent or cheaper price to do something similar.
Or even just take one of the big or little bow. I think it will also replace it. Yeah, I mean that may be one of the disappointment of the book is the Torque Commissioner and the big Torques that are still a bit the same. So yeah, we'll see what the community thinks about it.
I don't agree on the big bull, but on the big Torque, but we'll talk about it a bit later.
Cool, yeah.
Interesting. And then we have the Vassal Conjurer, the last character, and I think that's a great piece of chaff, because you can have a Wizard Apprentice for 160 points on a Vassal Steed, who can be a good piece of chaff and give you an access to either Witchcraft or Pyromancy. So I love this option. Maybe for me, slightly underpriced for a piece of chaff. I mean, 160, you got a Wizard Apprentice who can chaff. That's maybe a bit cheap, in my opinion, but we'll see if this is a lot of plays. I mean, you have only a resistance 3 health points, and a 6-up armor save, so you need to be careful of what you do, and it's still quite not so cheap for a piece of chaff, but it's still a Wizard Apprentice.
Well, that in combination to the fact that it's the cheapest option for chaff in the book. So, well, I think most people will try to include at least one. Just because it's super flexible and indeed cheapest option.
And it's always good to have access to Raven's Wing or Fireball. I mean, these are always useful spells.
Yeah. Well, even if you take an Adept, For example, Adept of Witchcraft, I can see quite a lot of nice synergies also with this character that will remain anyway super cheap.
Yeah.
You put it on foot, and then you have like 2 spells from Witchcraft. That's good.
Yep, definitely. And then we have the mounts. So the first of all is the seat of authority. That's an option that you have for your vizier to put him within a vassal unit. Not bad. It's not so expensive as an option. Gives you a nice addition of armor. So why not? Then we have the old vassal steed. No change. Maybe one more attack than before.
Yeah.
But I mean.
Indeed.
And then we have the Kadim Chariot, which is nice. It's a new addition to the book. Here you have it as a mount for mage, but it's a 0-1 option, so you cannot have multiple occurrence of this. It's not bad. You have with a shield a 4-up armor save and 4-up ward save, so it's not bad. What I tried is, for example, to play it with the Kadim Manifestation. To have, for example, you can have paired weapon, Hero's Art, Kadim Manifestation, and shield. So you have 4-up ward save. With Occultism, you can move to 3-up ward save or heal yourself with Pentagram of Pain, for example. Then you have still parry and 4 attack, strength 5, AP3. So this is not bad for a fighty character. Not too expensive on a chariot.
No, indeed, I like it as well. So I think you analyze it very well.
And yeah, you can reroll the charges. So this replaces a little bit the effect that Kadim have. Since you have a character on this chariot, you have the possibility to reroll directly the charge. And the Kadim Beast has directly battle focus. So basically the effect of the Infernal Brand are included. Bull of Shamut lost a lot of mobility in comparison to before. It had 16 flight. So now they are a bit swifter on the ground. But how do you like it? You have now an included Aegis.
Yeah, which is very new, and I think it's good. Well, I'm very fan of both the big and the small bull. I'm quite happy with what they've done. I mean, yeah, they lost a little bit of mobility, but I think it's also in order to cope with the fluff and the flavor they want to give to the army. It's bull, so it's massive. It shouldn't be that fast. No, I think overall it will be a very interesting mount, either for a prophet or for a vizier, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you tried an overload on the Bull of Shamut so far?
No, not yet. I still think that it's still. I would be a bit afraid to field him because it's still for me a bit too expensive to be one-shotted by a cannon. What I tried is several times the Prophet on the Bull of Shamut. I would also consider the Vizier on the Bull of Shamut. I think that would be a great cowboy. Yeah. I tried as well the Prophet on Great Bull of Shamut. I think I would rather field either Prophet or Vizier on this kind of mount, personally.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Then we have the Infernal Bastion. A bit complicated to explain, but basically it gives you the possibility to shoot with more model up to a maximum of 20. You can draw line of sight 360, so basically it's a good tool to help your shot within a new unit. I think it's quite solid with the 8 health point, but still only defensive 1, so you can get killed. You only have resistance 5 as well, but the rules are interesting. Personally, it's not so my flavor, not so my playstyle to field such a unit. Yeah. But I think some people will be happy to field it in a more shooty list, maybe.
Yeah, correct. And also here, we do not have to forget that this is a mount for a prophet. So it means that you would have also a prophet that is able to cast spells at 360 degrees, which is quite interesting. And it's 8 HP, so quite resistant as well. Now, I think if you think about, for example, having that 2 times in your list with 2 shooty blocks and potentially we'll see, but some slave, then you can really have something that will work well. But indeed, it's more defensive.
Yeah, I agree. You can definitely do something. And then let's move on to the core. So first of all, we have the Infernal Warrior. Not a lot to say about them. I guess we have the new Blunderbuss. They are more or less the same as before.
No, if I may, in fact, there is 2 big changes. One of them is that now they are wearing an infernal armor. It was not the case before.
Ah, yep, sure.
It makes them having a 4+ and a 5+ against fire, which was not the case. And just maybe to insist on the fact that now infernal dwarves have march and shoot, and that is great.
That is great. Yeah, I agree. It's really huge because then you can be mobile and shoot. So that's quite amazing. Let's move on to Citadel Guard. I'm a big fan of what they did with the Citadel Guard because basically you have very good resilience. You have access to spears, which I think it's really good for this unit, and you have the possibility when you don't charge to fight in an extra rank. So on 4 ranks with spears, this is quite interesting. It's expensive, but it's interesting. And then if you don't march, you can shoot in a 3rd rank. So also interesting for flintlock. And you have basically the possibility to have either pistols, so shoot up to 12, or flintlock to be more shooty. I've tried a bit more the combination pistol spears. I don't know what you prefer between the both combination.
No, honestly, I like them both, and I think they have very different roles in an army. If you take the pistols and spear, definitely it's a block that you want to put in front of a big unit. For example, if you combine it with the wall that we were discussing just before, it can be pretty scary, and then it will force your opponent to think about it. Oh, okay, am I going to charge? Am I going to maneuver? I really like it.
Yeah, me too.
And for the flintlocks, with the new rule, it's also cool because then you can have directly 15 shoots. It's really cool. And maybe just to mention for everybody that now the time of the little Citadel Guards is over because you have to take them by 15.
Yeah. Vassal's Levy, they have the possibilities of still several weapons possibilities, and you have this rule, all skins that we talked about before, to give the possibility to give a flammable token. And now the Vassal Chieftain, it's basically a special champion, so you don't have anymore the Vassal Chieftain within characters, but you have him here, which gives you basically the possibility to have 6 more inch to receive a commanding presence and rally around the flag, which is interesting because it gives you the possibility to be a bit more far away from your center, so why not?
Yeah, it works a bit like something you should be familiar with the foreman.
Exactly.
Foreman.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Then we have the slaves. I'm a big fan of the slaves. I've always been, and I'm still a big fan of it.
Yeah.
You can explain a bit the mechanic? We have some effects that we can do with the slaves.
Well, so very briefly, the slaves now are even more interesting than before because they have 2 abilities. The first one is to give battle focus to shooting to a unit that is in a 6-inch range. So I think it's huge. So typically, of course, it's always dwarves, and that's where they really insist on the synergy between dwarves and the other. And so, they have a second effect. That is, very briefly, they can replace the casualties caused by dangerous terrain for, again, a unit that is in the 6 inches range. So again, one that is marked with the Infernal brand. So I think it's nice. I like the shooty version, the sacrificial one, a bit less. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's still interesting. I mean, it's situational, of course, but when you want to charge with a big block, you are happy not to take DTs. So it's not bad, and I've been surprised by the combat abilities of the slaves, because you have paired weapon, and if you are within 6 of Infernal Brand, you have battle focus as well, reroll charges. I've been surprised. I've been able to do some damage with them. No spoiler to one of my battle report, but you will see. They can surprise. So for me, at least one unit will be auto-include. I always liked them before as piece of chaff. They can do a lot, and now they are even more interesting. Immortals, an amazing unit, in my opinion. I mean, with the special rule, never be wounded on better than 4+. They have, it's perfect for their name. I mean, they will be very hard to kill. They have parry in the profile, so you can take great weapon and still benefit from parry. So I'm a big fan of them. They are really good in my opinion. You still have the bodyguard version, so it's still a very reliable unit that you can count on.
Yeah, they are wonderful, and they are not so highly priced, I think. So it's really nice. I like them quite a lot.
Lugar Disciples.
What do you think? I'm really wondering, so I want you to give your
Yeah,
opinion first.
to be honest, I share your opinion. I'm also wondering. I'm not so sure what to think regarding them. They seems a bit fragile. They are not anymore in the same role because now they are scoring. They have the possibility to be very mobile, to have light troop skirmisher, but they still have this possibility of a ward save, and they have a lot of attack. They have 2 attacks in the profile. You can pay them per weapon, so you have 3 attacks, offensive 5 and AP 2 with a good agility. So it's not bad. It's an interesting choice. Yeah. I'm not so sure that I would choose them over other options, to be honest, to my taste. But I think some player will like it a lot. And you can as well, for example, put your Prophet of Lugar within this unit. So you have some synergies. Personally, I'm not sure I will feel them that often. But I like the concept. I like the mechanic they did. I'm not so sure about the rule Pact of Fire. I think I'm not so sure about this rule. It's a bit special. Use it one time, you lose something in exchange of Volcanic Embrace or some grinding attack. Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm exactly on the same page. I don't know exactly what to think about it. I think there is great opportunities. You have also the Faint Flight that can give some, I would say, potential truth. Just maybe to point out that it's, I think, the only unit besides the Warrior of the Dark Gods, the Warrior with, I think it's the Pride. No, not the Pride, but it's the only scoring unit that have Faint Flight. So that's interesting, but still, yeah. I think they are in competition with too much.
Yeah, and especially, I don't know what to think regarding the fact that they have now Infernal Brand. This means that they don't have this very nice rule, battle focus, and reroll the charges.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what to think, but I have to try them once. And then we have the new Cardim Incarnates.
Yeah. So I like them a lot.
A big rework. I don't like them, to be honest.
Okay.
Tell me why you like them.
Well, I think that, they lost flight, but they still are light troops, and this magma tunneling, so meaning that they can charge through units, your own units, of course, or piece of terrain, make, I think, them much more flexible than just a normal ground unit. And also losing flight, you lose a little bit of maneuverability, but you are also losing some downsides of being, flying. So you will have ranks now. You won't be suffering for...
No, they don't have ranks because they have light troops. And basically, as I understood it, magma tunneling, it's more or less like fly, because you can go through units and train. So it's more or less the same, without the downside of some special item of some armies who can deny you flight, basically. That's how I see it.
Yeah. No, you're right.
But what do you think regarding the fact that they can do more attacks due to the higher grinding, but still a big lack of AP, in my opinion?
Yeah, you're right, but something that I discovered quite recently, in fact, they have a halberd, so they would strike at strength 6, AP 2, which is very decent.
I have to correct you on this point, but I think you don't have the last version of the book because they don't have it anymore. That's why I don't like them. So now you get it. They delete the halberd, unfortunately, so they have only strength 5, AP 1, 3 attacks each. You can gain battle focus from Infernal Brand, but they don't have any more halberd. Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's good to know because
it changed a lot the effect of the unit.
Yeah. Then of course I start to share your opinion about the fact that what is the purpose of the redesign then? Because with the halberd, then it changed a lot. But now, you're right.
I think it shows as well that they were struggling to see how to make them competitive, and by just deleted the halberd option, now they seem a bit weak in comparison with the other option. So I think they have to find something to add a bit more punch, or either reduce the price. They could as well do something quite cheap and to give you some cheap access to flying units. That could be a way to go. And then we have the Kadim Chariot. Interesting as well, because we have 2 Lugar on top who can choose between paired weapon, great weapon, and they benefit from the good AP. But basically, in comparison with the character option, you don't have so good defense. You have only 5 up and 5 up ages.
Yeah, it's quite cheap. Right? It's only
It's cheap,
235 points. So for me, it could be included in some lists. It's a very nice tool and relatively cheap. But you're right. You need to make sure that it's protected enough.
What I liked is I fielded a couple of battles, the Kadim Chariot with great weapons, so then you have 4 attack, strength 6, AP 4, that's good, and I put it together with the mage on the Kadim Chariot. So both of them together, it's not bad. You reroll the charges, you have a good impact, you are a bit more protected against some spells and shoots, so I found that interesting choice, and not too expensive as well, both the character and the normal Kadim Chariot.
Indeed, I did not tell about it, but it's a good way to solve some issues of this. Yeah, cool.
And then we have the old Toruk, who gained, as you mentioned before, impacted 1. They lost this old rule, devastating charge plus 1 armor, but they're interesting and very cheap. For me, it's a good unit who can be a chaff, who can be a good scoring unit, who can kill chaff as well, because you have a lot of attack. I played them very regularly in my list with sped weapon. I mean, for only 190, you have a very good unit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they are very flexible and you can do so much, because also what is new is that they get a new extra armor point. So you can even have, like, with a shield, a 2+ armor for a decent price. That is also very interesting. And yeah, they have access to blunderbusses, which is not bad, I think.
Yeah.
Bit expensive maybe, but I can see this unit working as a chaff clearer.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Then we have the Anointed, so you weren't too happy about them. Personally, I think they are not so bad. They are not too expensive. They've, of course, a bit less armor. That's maybe the problem. But in exchange to that, they have a higher damage output with a good defensive capabilities, with the defensive 5, offensive 5. Then you can... I like the way of playing them, for example, with paired weapon and musician and a champion, for example. You have 13 attacks, offensive 6, strength 5, impacted strength 5. It's not bad. They lost a bit mobility. They lost a bit of armor, but... no, I think they are the same possibilities of armor. It's still, for me, there is still a problem of paying them infernal weapon and shield. It's still way too expensive to make big unit with infernal weapon and shield. I think it's still way too expensive.
Correct, but that's a bit the point. I think they did not really change the design, because the design was fine, but I see that the pricing went even a little bit up, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me that's maybe again one of the blocking points, because you could also just the regular Toruk that would work, or not exactly the same, but would be very nice as well. So, yeah, a bit with the, like we discussed for the Lugers, I think that maybe will compete with a lot of other entries in the book. Yeah. I don't know, that's my feeling. But.
I tend to agree, especially since you can have a 2-up armor save and 2 attack strength 5 easily on Toruk. That's good as well. I mean, resistance 4, okay, but 2-up armor save in comparison with 4-up, for example, it's not the same. So, I understand your point. Then we have the Lamassu, complete rework. Now is in the special section. Basically, you have a way of choosing between 4 spells, and you can cast them. It's a blind casting, so to say. You don't have to say which one of both of your spell you are casting. So it's a bit strange mechanic. I don't like it too much. For example, on UB, it's impossible to play it on UB, for example. Because you have no way to hide the card, so your opponent has to trust you. But no, to be honest, why not? It's not too expensive. It's a good way to add some spells without paying a character. The access to the spells is not bad.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
If I may, I think for me it's one of the most fun units in the book.
Yeah.
I think it will be difficult to balance it in a way because they're in a very highly competitive environment. The spells that you can cast with the Lamassu are really sometimes game changing, and it's really a gamble for your opponent to decide, okay, am I going to dispel it or not, not knowing what will be the effect. For 300 points, it can see some plays. I will definitely include one in my next list, I think, just to test that list.
Yep. Yeah, I tried it. I found it not bad at all. It's interesting. It's not bad in combat. You don't have a lot of attack, but still decent defensive capabilities. So not bad. You have an easy access to some spell. For example, Flaming Sword. I think it's an interesting choice. Then we have our Vassal Cavalry. It's a luxus vassal cavalry. We have all options included now, more or less. Light armor, shield, bows, light lance. You have everything. So they are not cheap, but you can do a lot. For example, give this precious flammable token.
Yeah, I think it's exactly the way they will work. For the first couple of turns, they will shoot at things, and then they will start to redirect. And then for this price, according to the fact that they can use this incendiary rules, well, I think they're worth it.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and then they are not bad in combat. I mean, you have a light lance, 1 attack strength 4 with offensive 4, and then you have 2 attack strength 3, so that's still not bad. Then we have the slingshot, basically like before, except the fact that now you can do the oil flask thrower. That's 3 shots with strength 1, and basically for every hit you are giving 1 instance of incendiary. Very interesting, I guess. It's versatile because you can be good against a lone target, but you can as well help with the flammable synergy.
Yeah, I think it's also very cheap, so it could be easily included. I like it, to be fairly honest.
Gunnery team. So now we have our first artillery piece where you can choose between rocket battery, Titan mortar, naphtha thrower, and as you can see, it's the same. It's a bit similar to before. Basically, the strength and armor penetration are reduced by 1. So to differentiate between the gunnery team with a smaller range, maybe sometimes. And of course the normal artillery we can shoot a bit longer and have a bit more strength, but gunnery team is much cheaper. I don't know, you can still march and shoot. I don't know, any of the options do you like particularly?
Well, one of my friends is really now fond of a couple of gunnery teams with rocket battery. According to him, it's a really nice way to keep some big monster at bay for a very decent price. And I believe, it can see some plays. It's not revolutionary, but it can be a good support piece.
Okay, let's move on to the infantry artillery. So basically here you gain much more range. For example, for rocket battery you get plus 12, so you are up to 36, and plus 6 for Titan mortar and naphtha thrower, so you are up to 24 with naphtha thrower, and 32, if I'm not mistaken, with Titan mortar. And which is nice, you have accurate. So basically you have not a big range like other war machines, but you cannot move, and you have accurate in exchange to that. So I found it interesting because you have to think a lot in advance how you are going to play this battle. Where will the enemy unit be? It's going in the same direction that you mentioned at the beginning of the video. You need to think a lot in advance what you're going to do during the battle before placing this piece of artillery.
Yeah, definitely. And also in combination with the new ammunition, you have like a lot of options. So quite a lot of planning ahead.
Yeah, I tried, for example, the rocket battery with an engineer. I mean, on long range, you are hitting on 3+. It's not bad at all.
No, indeed.
And then we come to the last category, Instrument of Destruction. First of all, the Infernal Engine, and to the surprise of a lot of people, it's now a 0-2 entry, so that might be surprising and a bit scary to some people. I've tried myself as well. I think as like every other Infernal Dwarf player, we said, oh, it's 0-2, I have to play 2 tanks. That was something to test.
It sounds super exciting on paper. But have you tried it? Are you satisfied with it?
Yeah, I've tried it a lot. I've tried a lot of combination, especially with rocket battery and close combat combination. To be honest, in my opinion, it's well balanced because we have 1 health point less than before. We have only defensive 1, which changed a lot because you can be hit easily by a lot of units. You still have good resilience ability with the 3-up, resilience 7, unbreakable, of course, that's still good. The mechanic of the movement is easier than before, so I like it. It's much better than before regarding movement and the possibilities to charge. I don't think it's overpowered to play 2 of them, to be honest. And yeah, with rocket battery or Titan mortar, for example, you don't shoot that well. I mean, it's not so easy to hit. You hit on long range very often, so it's 5 up. If you have a way to find an engineer, but it's not so easy to be within 6 of an engineer, you can hit maybe on 4 up on long range. It's not so easy, but it's still an interesting way to play them. I don't think that I would field any more 2 of them in my army, but it's still a way to play them, and I think it can still be a problem. A bit in the same way that you can play 3 Sphinx in the undead army. I mean, to play with 2 Resilience 7 unbreakable model can be a problem to some armies, so it can still be quite interesting.
And I mean, if you look at it this way, the close combat version is now cheaper than it was before.
Yeah.
And it's still very decent. And something that struck me when I was reading the book is that it also gains parry. Which is very nice.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very a nice model in combat. I mean, it's quite scary with parry, the high toughness, and the 3d3 grinding. Yeah. It's not bad, really.
And have you fielded one of the biggest versions, so with the base on 100 on 150?
I've tried one. I guess the only way to play them for me would be with the naphtha thrower, because you lose quick to fire, but then you always hit on 2+, so you don't really care.
Yeah.
Why not? It's still complicated because naphtha thrower, it's quite a short range with 18 only.
Yeah.
I didn't like it that much, to be honest. It's not bad. It's not bad, but I mean, the fact that you lose quick to fire, it's problematic.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you play with a Rock Crusher, you cannot play this upgrade, so it's only something that you can pay for the shooty version. I don't think it will see so much play, to be honest.
No, I share a bit the opinion. I'm a bit sad because I was fielding from time to time an Infernal Engine before, or Demonic Engine. I will miss that, but okay, it's still possible.
Yeah, I think they will need to do something, maybe reduce the price or change something, because I'm not convinced so much people will play it.
No. Probably.
Infernal Bastion, we talked about that before, and we have the Kadim Titan, the new version of it. What do you think?
Yeah. It's an hard case. I hope that I have the latest version regarding this guy, because then I may say something wrong. But, well, I don't know. It was one of the central pieces of my list before. I was fielding the Kadim quite a lot, even though people disliked it. At the ETC, it won me some games. It was really good. And now I have the feeling that it's not the same beast at all. It's less clean, a bit more reliable. Well, I still need to figure it out. It lost maybe a little bit of flavor, and it will work much more in combination with other units than before.
Okay, so at the beginning I was completely sharing your opinion. I was like, oh yeah, okay, 100 more or less, 90 point less, but fighting capabilities, I mean, that's something completely different. I was a bit sad, but I just tried it 2 times now in games. And I found it really interesting, to be honest, because now you have, first of all, you don't have frenzy anymore. Yeah. That's something huge, because you can be very independent and move a lot.
Indeed.
The fact that you have now 7-14, but you have easy way to reroll the charge, I like it a lot, because before it was sometimes an issue. Even with the 8 movement, you can fail some easy charges. Now you have reroll the charges, it's not bad. And I mean, the fact that you give this -1 armor with the Volcanic Embrace, you're still very, very good against infantry unit, of course. Yeah. It's a bit more problematic when you are going to face big character, a unit with a high armor. It's a bit more problematic, of course. It's less scary against these kinds of units, but I mean, that was expected if you don't pay the same price as before. So I would say it's still an interesting choice. I like it so far. I've played 2 games with, and I found it very useful. It can still do a good zoning job. You have to choose maybe a bit more the target. I think it's not exactly the same role as before. If you want really to scare some big monsters or big characters, you need to field something else, I guess. But it's still not bad, and you have a good way to give him divine attack. Don't forget that. That's also something quite interesting. So I think if you feel the Kadim Titan, you need to find a way to give him maybe flaming attack as well, either by playing pyromancy plus maybe the special item that we talked before, the golden idol of Shamut. Basically, I have two ways to give flaming attack. To give him divine attack would be good, I guess, to make him a bit more scary.
Yeah, but you're right. I think also the fact that is now the, I would say, more support unit, or a unit that will need support to work, is also interesting. And yeah, before it was very independent, or at least I was playing that very independently. But I liked what they did, and yeah, I think we need to think about it more. But it's good to see that they evolved, because I see on my older version some rules that were not included in what you described. So I like your version more.
Okay, good. Yeah, trust me, you have to try it, then probably you will like it. I mean, the fact as well that you have now 7 health points, it's also huge, because you can survive a bit more. So I guess you have to try it, and you will be surprised probably.
Yeah, but I will like it anyway.
And then we have the Citizen Giant to finish. You can explain it.
Yeah, well, very briefly, I think it's probably one of the best giant I've seen so far.
I agree,
because it's a giant that comes with a 3+ armor, which is crazy. Just that already, it's quite crazy. And then you have a couple of options, but that maybe you can describe them.
First of all, we have the normal giant club that you know. Then we have the tower shield, which seem pretty strong. Basically, you have distracting and hard target in the front arc, which gives you good possibility to survive against shooting and in combat as well. Because one of the problem with the giant is the low defensive skill. So that's quite interesting, I guess. Maybe slightly underpriced, in my opinion. And the last one, you can give flaming attack, magical attack to one of the unit. Why not? That's also something interesting, because if you use that in combination with units that have canny manifestation, they can gain a divine attack from that without having to cast spell. So, for example, if you field one Citizen Giant with a Kadim Titan together, you give him divine attack, you give him all the option you need. For example, you can be very independent, you can reroll your charges because the giant has infernal brand, you can have battle focus with the Kadim Titan, so that could be a good combination, for example, that you can do.
Yeah, right. I was just thinking about it. Indeed, they could work together very well, so that's really nice, I think, indeed.
Okay, I think we saw everything. What can you say to sum it up?
Well, I think most of us, us being Infernal Dwarf players, will be pleased with the book. It feels like a strong book, not overpowered, but a very strong one. And there is quite a lot of options there to explore, because, today we just described it a little bit, but I think people will come with a very nice combination, very nice meta. And I can't wait to see all the lists that people will craft.
Yeah, I share what you think. I think it's exactly in the same line that they did before with Warrior of the Dark God and Demon Legion, which are really good books. Army that function really well, that we see a lot in team meta. So I think it's in the same line. It's looking like a strong book with a lot of option, a lot of playable option. I don't see a lot of weak things. I think there are a couple of things who need to be adjusted. In the price, I think we talk about it a little bit, but I'm very excited. I think what I've been tested so far, I've been really pleased with all these options. I'm still struggling to find the perfect list. I've tried a lot of different things, and I'm still thinking about other options. So I think a very important feature of this book, which remains after, it's you still have the possibilities to play different playstyle. I think that's always something that people liked about Infernal Dwarfs. There are people who like to play Monster March, there are people who like to play very shooty defensive list, there are people who like to play mixed arms. You can really choose the playstyle that it fits your playstyle.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's a very flexible book and people will like it.
So thanks a lot to the staff who produced this book. Thanks as well for giving us access a couple of days before so that we were able to produce the video and give it to you on the day of the release. I think it should help you to understand the book. And thanks a lot to you, Adrien, for this video. It was really interesting to do it with you.
Yeah, thanks to you also for the opportunity and the friendly chat. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks, guys, and feel free to comment the video and ask us some questions. We'd be happy to respond in the comment section. Bye-bye.
Bye.